Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of The Possibility of Poetry. My name is Jackie, and I have been a high school English teacher for over 30 years. My goal in this podcast is to take the mystery out of poetry. There is not one unique message that a poem is trying to convey to you, that you have to torture the poem, as we did in our first episode, where the students tied the poem to a chair and tried to beat a confession out of it. No, poetry exists to enhance your life. Poetry exists to give you hope that there's connection, that other people in the world are feeling what you feel or are expressing what you wish you could express or are just here with you. You're not alone. That's our hope. That is the possibility of poetry, is to enhance our life, to bring more meaning to it in ways that we personally need. Again, not one central message that the author intended and you have to figure it out. It's not a math problem. There's not one right answer. You get to get the meaning that you need to get, that's applicable to your life, that's going to make your life better. So welcome. So we've talked in the past about a couple of ways that poems talk to us. One, of course, is through images. We talked about the conscious, right? The tip of the iceberg, the unconscious, that is this slurry of, of human experience and human knowledge, and the way that it talks to the conscious is through images. And that's what poetry is images, is imagery. We're going to have some great imagery in our poem today. You're going to like it. Um, and that these images are unique again to you. We talk about in English class, one of the seminal books that we read, the seminal novels, of course, is The Great Gatsby, uh, which is, if you haven't read it, I wouldn't. It's not really worth it. Don't tell anyone I said that. Or it may just be that I've taught it too much and I'm just like, oh my God. But it's basically rich people behaving badly. I think we have enough of that already going on. But anyway, in this novel, there's one really poignant image of a green light. And, I've had many discussions with students. Is that jealousy? Is that money? Is that, what? Ah, my gosh, we got to figure this out. But really, it can be whatever it means to you. It can be your first driving lesson and that first green light after you stepped on the brakes and you were waiting at the stop sign, and now you got a green light and it meant freedom to you, maybe. Terrific. If you get any meaning, any connection at all, that's the goal. That's the possibility of poetry. So images. We also talked about our evolutionary big brain and this wonderful loop that we had of, as animals, we talked about we're not very powerful physically in the animal world. Really, humans, the only thing that kills us anymore is each other. So we had to create this big brain that was our evolutionary, what's the right word? Advantage. There we go. That was our evolutionary advantage, that we had to communicate. So our brains got bigger. And then as our brains got bigger, we were able to have more communication and more subtle, more complex communication. Oh my goodness. It also means we need more communication to understand and connect with each other. Again, poetry. That's what that's all about. Okay. We also, no, I think that's it. Those were the things that we talked about, right? Language, communication. Okay. Today we're going to talk about prison. hmm I have a lot of opinions about American prisons. Um, but there are a few undisputable facts. One is that besides Cuba and El Salvador, we incarcerate more of our citizens than anyone else in the world that has a prison system that's applicable. It's 4 to 5 times higher our incarceration rate, not the number of people, but the rate of incarceration, 4 to 5 times higher than like Western Europe, where we have kind of comparable democracies. Um, we are only 4.5% of the global population, but we incarcerate 21% of the global population. Some things to think about. But one thing that they've done a lot of studies about and they found really works is when incarcerated people read novels, poetry. They've found that what it does is it creates empathy. So if you are a person that has committed a crime, if you've taken a life, if you've stolen from somebody, that shows some lack of empathy because you don't really care how that other person feels. You're taking their life. You don't care how their family feels. You know, same with stealing. It doesn't matter to you that that other person might need that thing or whatever, that you need that thing and that is paramount. And there's a lot of, oh my gosh, there's so much involved in it. But one thing is empathy, a lack of empathy, and that literature can provide that empathy. It actually physically changes their brains, or your brain for that matter. It doesn't have to be somebody who commits a crime to to look at something from another person's perspective. So I'm going to talk about novels because they've done a lot about novels. So it's different than watching a movie. When you watch a movie, you get another person's perspective, right? The director, the writer, the producer, the actor, all of that, but it's given to you. When you are reading, you have to make that meaning yourself. Let me give you an example. When I first read all the Harry Potter series, I freaking love the Harry Potter series. It is so Jungian. We'll get back to it at some point, I hope. And I read it with my kids, and it's a great memory. But I had a very specific idea of what Harry looked like, what Hermione looked like, what Ron looked like, even what Voldemort looked like. And that was my brain making that meaning from just cold dead words on a page. But that was my brain being creative and being empathetic and thinking. And when I watch the movies, love the movies. Oh my God, over and over again. But that was somebody else's vision of what Harry looked like, what Ron looked like, what Hermione looked like, what Neville looked like. So that's the difference of having perspective in literature, is that you are making that. Uh, it's your brain making that picture, that perspective. That being said, you're also in somebody else's worldview, and it's a sustained worldview. I mean, when you watch a movie, again, we're making that comparison, it's a couple of hours. A book, uh, depending on the book, but most books, it's going to be 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, however long it takes you to read. And oh, let me just make this fact. Being a slow reader does not mean you're a bad reader. Take your time. Let it sink in. I'm a really slow writer. It takes me forever to write a couple pages. But that doesn't mean I'm a bad writer. And it doesn't mean you're a bad reader. Oh, I am giving you permission right now. You can go and read. um, so yeah, anyway, you are in somebody else's sustained worldview for quite a long time. And that leads to empathy. You are in, like, yeah, you're not just in your own head, you're in somebody else's world that your head is creating. Oh my goodness, there's so many layers here. Yeah. So, perspective, literature gives perspective. Literature helps with empathy because you're getting somebody else's sustained worldview and interacting with it. That's what I guess what I mean to say. Instead of just having it given to you like the movie, you're interacting with it to make meaning, which gets in a different part of your brain. Also, and we talked about this in the last podcast, it breaks the isolation. We talked about how isolation is one of the worst things that can happen to a human, unless it's chosen, monks and things like that. That, sorry, my brain just went into Young Frankenstein, and when Gene Hackman plays the monk, plays the hermit who's blind. Or anyway, if you haven't seen that movie, you should. Terrific movie. But anyway, so breaks the isolation. You're in this with somebody. You're doing this with somebody. You're not alone. You're connected. You're connected through those words that they make. So poetry in particular is a little bit different than, the long novel, but it's the same in somebody else's perspective, somebody else's worldview, but you are making the meaning from the images and the things that they're um, delivering or giving or just exposing. So that's why literature is so important in prisoner rehabilitation. Cool, huh? So we're going to kind of test it a little bit today. We're going to be reading a poem together, as always, and we're going to be doing our format of I read it, you let whatever happens, happens, things that stick out, things that don't, whatever. We have a little rest for the brain, read it again, and then I give you some insights. But for this one, we're going to test about empathy and perspective and that sort of thing, because I'm not going to reveal to you until the end who the poet is and the poet's experience. You're just going to experience the poem from your experience, and then possibly there would be a connection at the end. All right. Oh, we'll see. Before we do that, though, let's talk about our tarot connection for today. So, our tarot connection right behind me, this is the Page of Swords. But as you can see, it's upside down. So the Page of Swords is about communication and intelligence and all of this. You can kind of see there's a line and it's connected to that right there. That is a light bulb, like for ideas. And when it's right side up, she's holding this like a bunch of balloons. She's holding a bunch of light bulbs to show ideas and creativities. But this one, of course, is upside down. So that shows, excuse me, that the communication is scattered, that maybe you're putting up walls in your life, right? You're blocking communication, actively blocking communication, and that maybe you're hiding the truth. Maybe there's a reason you're blocking communication. There's something that you don't want to share or aren't ready to share, or maybe it frankly isn't appropriate to share. So there's our tarot connection. So the poem is called We Wear the Mask. So maybe you could start right now just with what images that word gives you, mask. First of all, that's a cool sound. Sk, sk. I think about a couple of different things. I think about my childhood in the 1970s and how we would get those terrible masks like at the Sears. I swear they were toxic. I don't know if that's some of the problems with that older people are having is that we all wore those crazy Halloween masks. I think about like a plague mask. Oh, with that like long nose. Oh, those are scary. Okay, so there's our start. Thinking about masks. Here we go. First time through, whatever comes up. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile. and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but, O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but, oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. All right, one more time. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be otherwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but, O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but, oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you some suggestions. You can take them or not. So, first of all, in every single poem, we've been looking at repetition. That's a really important poetic device because it's saying, look here. No, wait, look here. No, look here. So, this poet, it's a male, says, we wear the mask. One, we wear the mask. Two, we wear the mask. Three times. And that's a magic number. So they first, we wear the mask that grins and lies. Oh, look at that contrast right there. So the top of the mask is showing the smile, but that is a lie. That makes me think of Macbeth. That Macbeth quote of be like the flower, but be the serpent under it. Oof. Lady Macbeth says this to Macbeth when it's like, yeah, go lie to the king because we're going to kill him later tonight. Spoiler alert. Shakespeare, everybody dies in the tragedies. Okay. Um, Back to this. So we wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. Cheeks. Cheeks. Why cheeks? What do cheeks do? Huh? It's like, it's not something that has an expression, does it? Our eyes do, our mouths do. We can set our jaws. That has an expression. But our cheeks, I like that. That's subtle. Also, I like that this is not just the poet, it's a group, right? He's saying we wear the mask. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. So, right there, you know what you're contending with. This debt we pay to human guile. So, guile is intelligence, but it's also kind of sneaky, kind of sly. Like if you have guile, you know, you're not telling the truth, but you know what you're doing. You are intelligent. With torn and bleeding hearts, we smile, torn. Ugh, I think about that. Like it's not even like your flesh isn't just cut, it's torn. This is a different level of pain, right? When you're torn and bleeding. and mouth with myriad subtleties. So, first of all, myriad just means many, but mouth. All right, I'm going to give you another poetry term. You ready? This is called synecdoche. I know. That's one of those words that, like, you would never get that just from looking at it. But synecdoche. And that is um, when you're taking a general concept and you're giving it like a specific detail. So in this one, he's saying, and mouth with myriad subtleties. So really what he says, we say, right? That's our general concept. We're talking with myriad subtleties, saying it. But he wants to give you a detail. He wants to give you that image because he's already given us the image of the cheeks and the eyes. Here's the mouth. We mouth. So you're saying that. It's not going deeper, right? It's not passing back into him. It's just his mouth with myriad subtleties. Mm. So yeah, so they're hiding there, right? As subtly as they can with human guile. Why should the world be otherwise in counting all our tears and sighs? So it's kind of like giving up a little bit, right? He's like, well, it's the way the world is, right? It's not fair. We all know that. So why should the world be otherwise? What do they care? What's behind our mask? They just want to see our mask. We just want that bank teller to smile and be nice to us. We just want that mechanic, man, I don't care about your family life. Can you just fix my car? You know, that's kind of what he's saying. In counting, oh sorry, blah, 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 blah. Nay. It's like, don't worry, they don't have to pay any attention. Nay, let them see us. Let them only see us while we wear the mask. So maybe there's a reason. Is there a reason behind them needing to hide? I think about masks I've worn and like they may be uncomfortable. They may be toxic, like those Sears masks, but sometimes they're just necessary. Like in your job, sometimes you have to wear a mask. Like as a teacher for all those years, like I couldn't come into the classroom with what was going on in my life, good or bad, because it just wasn't relevant. I wore my teacher mask and I was there for the kids as much as I could be. This seems a little more serious than that, though, doesn't it? Because they've got bleeding hearts and torn. Mm. Okay, next stanza, which just means the next chunk, the next paragraph. We smile, but oh, great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. So behind the mask, they're asking for help. They're tortured and they're asking for help from Christ. We sing. So again, we talked about this, the shift, right? We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. So on one side, we're pretending we got our mask, we're smiling, we're singing, everything's okay, the world doesn't care. Just see my smile, my song. But it's vile and hard and long. I love that word vile. It makes me think of vomit. Because well, vomit is vile. It's disgusting. Maybe it's that V. Hmm. Anyway, last lines. But let the world dream otherwise. Again, who cares? We're let them just see the mask. We wear the mask. Repetition. All right. Well, I hope that made some sense. And if not, that's okay too. I hope that you're like, wow, this is a mask is a life that I have too. Maybe not to this degree, or maybe to this degree. depending on where you are, do you have to act this way with your in-laws? Do you have to act this way, neighbors? You don't get to be who you really are. You feel tortured. So here's the connection. So here's maybe where we can have empathy with another person, some compassion. This was written by Paul Laurence Dunbar. He was the son of slaves. He um, he was born in 1872. He died in 1906. So 1872, emancipation for the slaves happened in 1865. Um, Reconstruction began in the South, 40 acres and a mule, but often this didn't happen. Um, some states, some places, they took the slave laws and well, okay, it's the slave laws, just that. Here, a slave is allowed to do this, a slave is allowed to do that, can't be on the road, got to know your master, all of that. Um, and they just took out the word slave and they wrote in the word that they used at that time, Negro, which of course we don't use anymore, but, and that, so the laws were the same in some places. And this is what gave rise to um, the Jim Crow South, which had very strict segregation laws. Civil Rights Act of 1965. Hooray! 100 years later, hopefully some progress. So we weren't there. We weren't there for Reconstruction. Our parents weren't in slavery. Um, but we're reading this poem. We're getting these images. We're seeing a mask that we ourselves sometimes wear, and a little empathy for somebody that was there at that time, perhaps. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this made some sense to you about how poetry and literature can create empathy and connection and hope. And remember, there's not one big message that you have to torture out of a poem to understand poetry. If you get one image, if you got one image today, that's victory. Oh, another V word, vile vomit, victory. I hope you have a great day. And I hope you come back and realize the possibility of poetry. Thank you.